Hey folks, welcome back to 3Zen, all 602 of you. It's great to see everyone. So in 1979, we experienced 5 T-38 gear-up landings in the command. Now this may have happened in the calendar year 79, it could have spilled over into 80, I'm not quite sure, but I know within a year's period we had 5 T-38 gear-up landings. Might add inadvertent gear-up landings. You have vertent and then you have inadvertent. These were inadvertent gear-up landings. After the first one occurred, of course, we investigated, and the two pilots, the student pilot and the IP, said neither one of us touched the gear handle. The damn gear handle just went up, and we went down, slid to a stop. And that was more or less the story of the next 4. All the aircrew said we did not touch the gear handle. Now, I am guilty of sucking the gear early. You know, when you get that 38 rolling down the runway and just after you lift off and accelerating and you feel like you're going fast because you are going fast. And I mean, hair's on fire and holy crap, if mom could see me now. You reach up, you suck the gear and you suck the flaps. At the same time, you're running the trim full nose down or nose down and just smoking. It's fun. But also, when you do that, you kind of know in the back of your head, if anything goes wrong, I am so screwed. At any rate, I'm going to diverge here. I once got a call from Steve Pyle up at Mountain Home when I'd flown up to see him for a weekend. And so I took off that morning, and when I got back to the base, I got a call from Steve, and he said, we just got the horizontal marks off the runway covered up so no one will know what you did. He said, Bob, that gear came up so early. I've never seen anything like it before. Maybe I ought to back off. Anyway, we'll get back to the story. We had these 5 gear-up landings, and we couldn't figure it out. All the pilots said, no, we did not touch the gear handle. So we brought this 38 into the hangar down there at Randolph, into a hangar, and put it up on jacks, hooked a hydraulic mule up to it, and began an investigation. In our shop, we had a fellow named Bob Seeley, and Bob was a great guy. He was also a great pilot, a great friend, and a pretty darn good investigator. So, I'm going to diverge again here. I can't help myself. One night, Bob and I were up at Vance on a staff assistant's visit, drinking beer. And we were sitting there talking, and some gal overheard Bob telling a story about this, that, or another. And she looked at him and she said, what are you, some kind of rocket scientist? And Bob said, why, yes, I am. He says, I majored in nuclear engineering at Lowell Tech. Well, I didn't know that, but it sure fit. At any rate, back to the hangar. So Bob climbs up in the jet, and I'm just kind of milling around smartly. This was his investigation. And he puts the gear up, and gear come up, he puts it down, the gear goes down, and he's just sitting there looking around, kind of curious and whatnot. Put the gear handle up, gear come up, puts it down, gear goes down. Everything looks normal. Well, about 4:30, we decided to put a lid on it. So we wrapped things up, went over to the Auger Inn, local watering hole, had a couple beers, and I headed home. Well, Bob went back to the hangar. It was just driving him nuts. So he gets back to the hangar, and he'd taken a couple beers with him. So he gets up in the cockpit there, I hooked the mule up, turned the power on, got the thing all powered up, and put the gear up. Gear came up, put it down. So now he started looking down deeper into the cockpit to just see what the linkage did. And in order to do that, he took the rudder pedals and shoved them full forward. Now he had a clear view of the linkage from the gear handle down to the gear actuators. So he flipped the gear handle up and he saw how this all moved, put it down, okay? And then he got down there and put the gear handle up. Well, he noticed that in the linkage, there was this pin that protruded about 3/4 to an inch from the linkage. It came out inboard toward where your boot would be. Now, if the rudder pedals were up for a normal height pilot, you wouldn't see it. But if you extended it, then it became into view, and if you had one of these real tall guys, it was clearly in view. So anyway, Bob looked at that pin, and he took his boot and he put his foot on there and just kind of pushed that. When he pushed it, it just didn't take much. It went over center, and the gear handle popped up, and the gear came up. Damn. So he put the gear down, and he put his boot on it again, and just went click, and boom, the gear came up. So he managed to get a supervisor who found a way to, like a, I don't know what you'd call it, a scale, I suppose, that could measure the force of that linkage. And as it turns out, on the gear handle, it took between 5 and 7 pounds, somewhere like that, to snap the gear up. But on that pin, it only took about three pounds or something on that order. Nothing compared to what it took on the handle. And once you pop that thing over center, the gear was going up. Well, I'll be damned. So Bob wrapped it up and put the jet to bed. And when he got home, he gave me a call and he explained everything that he'd discovered. And he said, "Why don't you meet me down in the hangar at 7 in the morning?" I said, "You got a date?" So I go down there at 7 in the morning. Bob and I are kind of milling around. He climbs up in the cockpit and he says, "Here, let me show you this." So everything was powered up. Took his boot, popped it, up it came. Damn. So I said, "Hop out of there, let me try it." So he did, and I got in. Pink, up it came. I'll be darned. So at that point, Bob goes over to the phone and he calls up Jerry Hodson, who was our boss in flight safety. He says, "You need to come down here, Colonel, and see what we've discovered." So Colonel Hodson comes down, and Bob's in the cockpit, and Jerry comes in and says, "What you got?" So Jerry explains it to him and says, "Here, watch this." He puts his hands up and he clicks the pin over center, gear comes up. Damn. And Jerry does it again, and Colonel Hodson says, "Hop out of there." So he hops out of there, and Colonel Hodson gets in, and he pops it a couple times. Then he gets out and goes over the phone, and he calls Colonel Bassett, who was the director of flight safety. Says, "Boss, you need to come down here and see this." So Colonel Bassett rolls down. Jerry's sitting in the cockpit now. Colonel Bassett walks up on the stand, looks in, and he said, "What you got?" He says, "Watch this." Pink, up come the gear. Damn. So Jerry gets out of the cockpit. Colonel Bassett gets in the cockpit and goes through the same drill again. Colonel Bassett, I'll be damned. So he gets out, goes over to the phone, and calls General Miller, Whitey Miller. General Miller was Colonel Bassett's boss. He was Air Training Command IG. So General Miller comes down, and Colonel Bassett's in there, and we're lined up. Now we're in the conga line, lined up like a bunch of gomers, I guess. So anyway, Colonel Bassett says to General Miller, "Watch this. This is cool." Pink, gear comes up, plops down. So General Miller says, "Hey, let me try that." Colonel Bassett gets out. General Miller gets in. And so General Miller takes his foot. He planks it, up it comes. I'll be darned. So he gets out of the cockpit. He goes over the phone. He calls up the 2-star at headquarters ATC, the director of operations. I think it may have been General Divich at that time, but I'm not sure. You know, they all look alike. Anyway, so General Miller hops back in the cockpit a little short time thereafter, and General Divich, for the sake of the video, comes in. He said, "What you got, Whitey?" So Whitey tells him about it, plinks the gear up, hands free. Whoa, look at that. So then, of course, Miller gets tossed out, Divich gets in, and that's the way that thing was solved. Now, the fix to it, initially, they just wanted to, well, of course, we sent out an FCIF, Flight Crew Information File, advising everybody what the hazard was. You had to be careful with it. But then they looked at putting a shield in there to protect that pin. And that's where they were when I went down to Australia, and I wasn't sure what the actual fix was. I don't know why, but when I got back, it just never dawned on me to look for it. I guess it had died. The fix must have worked, because I never had a problem with it from then on out. But at any rate, it just spoke to the tenacity of Bob Seeley, and what a great investigator he was. And it was so much fun to work with him. I'll tell you, that guy could become so focused that the world could fall away, and he'd still be focused on an issue. It wouldn't bother him at all. I always said, fondly, I said, I could put a screwdriver down on his desk at 9 in the morning, and by 3 o'clock, he'd figure out a way to take it apart. But anyway, that was just Bob, and God love him. What a great investigator. Like I said, what a great friend. And now I have a great story to share with you folks. So thanks for stopping in. This is Bobo. Bass gear. Stop.